Oh!
Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be doing something what I've been meaning to do for like quite a long time now. Like I've been like putting it off like other videos and that have like come up and like whatnot. So like it's sort of been like delaying like me like getting like this video up. But what I am going to do today is like rank all of John Lennon's solo albums. This was requested by like a user on here called Movie Reviews Zane Wilder. So thank you for requesting this video, and like, that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to rank his 8 studio albums, like the core 8 albums, like what you get in like the Lennon signature box set up there. So like I won't be including stuff like the 2 Versions album or like the Wedding album, like that rubbish. Like I've no interest in that. These are just like his core studio albums. So we'll get started with number 8. So yeah, number 8, it is Sometime in New York City. Not an album what I am massively fond of. I think for like a number of reasons. Firstly, it's very like political album. Like sort of like he's commenting on like the news events of the day in like in like the early 70s, like America and that. So like it does kind of date this album. Like it really like attaches this album to like a period in like a similar sort of way with sort of like Bob Dylan's like early stuff and like that sort of like songs like about like the early 60s. But whereas like Bob Dylan's early stuff hasn't really dated that much, like sort of Blowing in the Wind and like Masters of War and that are still great songs, and are still very relevant songs, timeless songs. These songs unfortunately are not, simply because I think they are just poor songs really. John himself, like he only gets about 3 songs to his album. Like on himself, like there's a lot of Yoko singing or like doing what she does like on this album. So yeah, pretty poor album. Like I think like most Lennon fans would put this at the bottom, like off like his catalogue. But from that, I am going for his rock and roll covers album called Rock and Roll. Now this is okay. I mean, it isn't the best like rock and roll covers album. Like there's like the one standout moment for you, which is Stand By Me, a fantastic song. John Lennon's version is great. It is like almost as good as like the original. Fantastic. It's just a little bit like very sort of typical sort of sound like on this album. Like some like the songs he does, like they're maybe not like the best songs, like there's some pretty poor choices, but there are some great ones as well. He does a version of like Peggy Sue, he does Ain't That a Shame, and like You Can't Catch Me, like another Chuck Berry song. So yeah, some great songs like on this album. But unfortunately, I think it is partly like the production, and like partly like it just seems a bit like like a little bit typical of like a rock and roll covers album. Like I do prefer like McCartney's Run Devil Run and maybe even McCartney's Russian album. Like I'm not too sure, but this is still like a good, fairly good, decent attempt at like a rock and roll covers album from 1975. This one. Coming in at number 6, I am going for his posthumous album released in 1984. It is Milk and Honey. So this is kind of like Double Fantasy Part 2, because after like Double Fantasy came out, like he was like working on like a follow-up album. So that's what most of these songs are. And unfortunately for me, they're not quite as good as like the Double Fantasy tracks, although there are still some great John Lennon songs on this album, including I'm Stepping Out, I Don't Want to Face It, Nobody Told Me, and Borrowed Time being like my personal highlights from this album. It is let down though because half of it is Yoko songs, which are not very good, and when it's on like Double Fantasy, at least some of her songs like are like at least like tolerable, and on here they're like unlistenable. It's really like a difficult album to listen to all the way through. But the John songs though are like the vast majority of them are like really good. Definitely half like a good album here, Milk and Honey.
I'm just sitting here watching the wheels go round and round.
And now coming in just above that at number 5, I am going for Double Fantasy here. Now you might be surprised at like how low this is, because for me, song-wise, this has some of John's best solo songs. We've got Just Like Starting Over, I'm Losing You, Beautiful Boy, Watching the Wheels, Woman. There's some brilliant stuff on this album like from like John. But for me, it is let down because of like the Yoko songs. Like they are like tolerable, but they're not that great, like, overall. And like it's like made worse because they are like intertwined. It's sort of like supposed to be like a sort of like a conversation between them. So like John gets a song, then like Yoko gets a song, which means that I don't play this album all that regularly. Like I tend to turn to this album here, which is called the John Lennon Collection, which has most, if not all, of like his Double Fantasy songs. I think all bar one are like on this greatest hits album, so like this is like the way where I would most listen to these songs. But I am of the opinion that if you combine this album and this album, like the John songs on like Double Fantasy and Milk and Honey, you would have his best solo album, because you'd have so many great songs, like just like Starting Over, and Losing You, Watching the Wheels, and Nobody Told Me Borrowed Time. Some great songs, or maybe like one or two filler songs from like Milk and Honey, but it would be a cracking album. That this is still pretty good though. Like the John side anyway is fantastic, flawless. It is just the Yoko songs what let this album down for me. Now at number 4, I am going for his 1973 album called Mind Games here. Now I quite like this album. Like I know that this is one where like a lot of John fans, like nobody really seems to love it, but like no one like seems to really hate it. I either. Like it just seems to be sort of like an average, like in like the middle album, and like that's like what it is for me. Like there's quite a few sort of like slower songs like on this album here. Like there's a lot of like ballads and that. Like I think like One Day at a Time I quite like. I'm Sorry is like a great song. Out the Blue and like that, but there are some like more like perkier, more upbeat moments such as Intuition, Only People. The title song Mind Games is like great as well. Meat City, the closer, is like great. So yeah, there's some really good stuff on this album. Like it is definitely like an underrated one. Like a lot of people do like tend to bypass, but it is pretty good. Just like going through like the tracks again, like there are some like really great moments on this album. So that is Mind Games. So the next ones, number 2 and 3, could probably be like intertwined. Like I mean, like they were almost level, but I have come to the decision that this is the order of what I'm going to put them in. At number 3, I'm going for his album Imagine from 1971. Now this is sometimes considered John Lennon's best solo album, and sometimes considered to be one of the greatest albums of all time. But for me, like when it is like talked like about in like those terms as being like one of the great all-time albums, unfortunately for me it doesn't quite cut it. There are some amazing songs though. I mean, Imagine is classic, an amazing song. Imagine, definitely. Jealous Sky is brilliant. Give Me Some Truth is like a great rocker, and I quite like the song How as well. But there are a couple of like tracks on this album what are kind of like a little bit like I'm not too sure about. There's a lot of like sort of like sugary sweet sort of songs, such as like Oh Yoko and like Oh My Love, and there's a couple of like other ones like as well I think, and like I Don't Want to Be a Soldier. Not a massive fan of that track either, unfortunately. So a little bit of like a mixed bag, but the highlights on this album, like what I mentioned, like Imagine, Jealous Guy, and that, those are just fantastic. And like it is like also kind of like annoying like as well with like the sort of like the stereotypical thing of like, oh, Paul McCartney being like sort of like the balladeer, like sort of like the softer, slower songs, but John being like the rocker. I think by like 1971 that kind of like swapped about, because there's a lot more sort of slower, more sort of love songs on this album compared with like Ram, which has stuff like Too Many People and like Smile Away and E at Home, real strong rocking songs, but kind of like are like in some ways a little bit missing from this album, but it's still a great album though, Imagine here. But the one I would put just a tad above Imagine personally is his 1974 album Walls and Bridges, which I really enjoy actually. This is definitely one that I would say is like underrated album, because it doesn't get talked about like all that much this album, but we get some brilliant songs such as Going Down on Love, The Opener, love that one, and Whatever Gets You Through the Night was like a big hit for John, What You Got, I love that song as well. Number 9 Dream is just exquisitely beautiful song. Surprise Surprise is great. Nobody Loves You When You're Down and Out, also fantastic. So there's some really great stuff on this album. Maybe a couple of like side filler tracks, maybe like I'm not a massive fan of like Old Dirt Road or like Bless You, like not massive like of those songs, or like Beef Jerky is like a bit of like an instrumental song, doesn't really do all that much, but there are some cracking highlights on this album, and like it's got really like fun packaging like as well, what I'll just quickly show now. Here it's sort of like the cover, you can sort of like customise the cover and that, and like change the back picture and stuff, so that's really cool. Also comes with like a little book and like insert and that. So yeah, a great album here, Walls and Bridges.
God is a concept.
But now, my number one choice, I am going for his solo debut album, Plastic Ono Band, which is one of the all-time great solo Beatles albums. It is just so raw and like emotionally raw as well. John really just lets it all out on this album, like all like his frustration and angst, and like you really tell it's a very powerful album. You do kind of have to be in like a certain mood to listen to this, but when you are like in that mood, this album just blows you away. So many great songs. I'll just get the track listed out just to like refer to that. Yeah, opens up with Mother, amazing song. Hold On John, I think is like really like underrated, really nice little soft number. I Found Out, a great rocker. Working Class Hero, one of John's all-time classics. Isolation, another great song. Remember, a fantastic opening number. Look at Me is like a nice like softer acoustic song, and like God to finish is brilliant as well, one of John's best solo songs. But I think that like most people like would agree that like either this one or like Imagine is like John Lennon's like best solo album. This one for me though just takes the cake because it is so consistently great. Like as an album, there's no real weak songs on it. Like there's maybe like well I'm not a massive fan of, but I can listen to it. I still think it is a good song. Love is like a little bit basic, little bit like simplistic, but that is kind of like what gives it like its beauty and like that like as a song. But yeah, there's some brilliant stuff on this album, Plastic Ono Band. One of John Lennon's like definitely John Lennon's best solo album, and like one of the best solo Beatles albums around. So I hope you have enjoyed this ranking of like John Lennon's solo albums. If like you'd like me to do this on any other artists, what like I've got like I've got like a full collection of, please do let me know. Like I've already done this on like Paul Weller and like The Who, I think, so far. Like I'm going to try and do one on like Tom Petty sometime soon, like as well, and like maybe a couple others, maybe the Kinks, like what I've got of them. But anyway, yeah, like if like have like any suggestions for those, please do leave them down below. Also suggestions for album reviews and top 10s would be appreciated, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.
What can I say?